Αγαπητές φίλες και φίλοι, καλησπέρα σας. Είμαστε για άλλη μια τρίτη μαζί στο φιλόξενο κανάλι της διαδικτυακής τηλεόρασης των ανιχνεύσεων. Σήμερα θα αναζητήσουμε και θα εκμεταλλευτούμε τη γνώση και την εμπειρία ενός φίλου, μιας διακεκριμένης προσωπικότητας της ελληνικής ομογένειας στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες, ενός ανθρώπου με βαθιά γνώση του συστήματος λειτουργίας της διοίκησης των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών, ενός έμπειρου αναλυτή και σύμβουλο στις σχέσεις των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών με την Ελλάδα και την Κύπρο. Είναι μαζί μου ο κύριος Νίκος Λαριγάκης από τη Σκόπελο της Μαγνησίας. Είναι ο πρόεδρος του American-Hellenic Institute. Συνάντησα τον κύριο Λαριγάκη, τον αγαπητό φίλο Νίκο, στην Ουάσιγκτον κατά την υπηρεσία μου ως ακόλουθος άμυνας της Ελλάδας στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες. Θα μπορούσα να μιλώ για ώρες για το πάθος, τον ενθουσιασμό και την αφοσίωσή του στον ελληνισμό, αλλά για αυτά μιλάει το έργο του και θα αρκεστώ μονάχα να τον ευχαριστήσω για την υποστήριξη, τη στήριξη και τη βοήθεια που προσέφερε σε μένα ως άτομο, αλλά κυρίως για τη συνδρομή του ιδίου και του American-Hellenic Institute στην προβολή και στην κοινοποίηση του έργου των ενόπλων δυνάμεων της Ελλάδας και της Κύπρου στους φορείς της Αμερικανικής διοίκησης, αλλά και στους οργανισμούς που επηρεάζουν ή και διαμορφώνουν την κοινή γνώμη και λαμβάνουν αποφάσεις. Το έργο του Ιδρύματος είναι μεγάλο και θα ήθελα όμως ιδιαίτερα να αναφερθώ, μεταξύ των άλλων θα τα ζητήσουμε από τον κύριο Λαριγάκη, στο πρόγραμμα της εξωτερικής πολιτικής που έχει υλοποιήσει εδώ και 10 χρόνια σχεδόν, 12, με ελληνόπουλα τρίτης, τέταρτης ή και πέμπτης γενιάς και με τα ταξίδια του στην Ελλάδα και στην Κύπρο ενημερώνονται για τις σχέσεις των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών με τις χώρες μας, την Ελλάδα και την Κύπρο δηλαδή, και καταλαβαίνουν καλύτερα τον κόσμο σε αυτή την περιοχή και με τον τρόπο τους, είτε μέσω των πανεπιστημίων των οποίων σπουδάζουν, είτε μέσω των πολιτικών για τους οποίους εργάζονται, είτε και της κοινωνίας στην οποία ζουν, προωθούν τα θέματα αυτά και ενημερώνουν τον κόσμο. Το θέμα μας σήμερα ασφαλώς είναι η αλλαγή στην αμερικανική ηγεσία. Είμαστε σχεδόν 22 ώρες πριν από την αλλαγή αυτή, αύριο το μεσημέρι για Αμερική, και αυτή η αλλαγή συνταγματικά και εθιμικά γίνεται την 20η Ιανουαρίου του επόμενου έτους από τις εκλογές. Οι εκλογές, όπως θυμόσαστε, έγιναν στις 3 Νοεμβρίου και στην περίοδο αυτή, με βάση το Σύνταγμα, υπάρχουν κάποιες άλλες δραστηριότητες που γίνονται και φτάσαμε στην 7η Ιανουαρίου, οπότε ο πρόεδρος της Γερουσίας και αντιπρόεδρος των ΗΠΑ, ο κύριος Πένς, ανακοίνωσε τον νικητή των εκλογών, τον κύριο Biden, προερχόμενο από το Δημοκρατικό Κόμμα, με 306 εκλέκτορες έναντι 232 του νυν Προέδρου, για 22 ώρες ακόμα, του Προέδρου Τραμπ. Θα ήθελα πριν προχωρήσουμε παρακάτω να δούμε ένα μικρό αφιέρωμα στον ιδρυτή αυτού του Ιδρύματος και στη συνέχεια θα επανέλθουμε για τη συζήτησή μας με τον κύριο Λαριγάκη.
Θα σας παρουσιάσω λοιπόν τους προσκεκλημένους μας. Είναι ο κύριος Ευγένιος Ρωσίδης, ιδρυτής του Ελληνοαμερικανικού Ινστιτούτου, πρώην Υπουργός Οικονομικών των ΗΠΑ στην κυβέρνηση του κυρίου Νίξον. Καλησπέρα. Και πριν αρχίσουμε με τα σημαντικά θέματα που θα μας απασχολήσουν, να ρωτήσουμε με τον κύριο Ρωσίδη και να μας πει για το Ινστιτούτο του και πού έχει μέχρι στιγμής δραστηριοποιηθεί.
Ναι, πώς δημιουργήθηκε.
Θα προσπαθώ να μιλάω ελληνικά, αλλά δεν είναι αρκετά καλά. Γεννήθηκα στην Αμερική και δεν τα ξέρω σωστά, αλλά θα προσπαθώ. Αρχίσαμε το American-Hellenic Institute στις 1974, όποτε οι Τούρκοι
είχαν εισβάλει στην Κύπρο.
Είχαν βάλει στην Κύπρο το πόλεμο. Και το κάναμε γιατί η Αμερική με τον κύριο Kissinger violated US law. Έπρεπε under the law ο Kissinger να σταματάσει.
Παραβίασε τον Αμερικανικό νόμο.
Παραβίασε τον Αμερικανικό νόμο με τη χρήση των όπλων στην Κύπρο.
Να μην αφήσει άλλα arms
Τα
όπλα να πάνε στην Τουρκία. Δεν έκανε έτσι ο Kissinger και εμείς είπαμε πρέπει να κάνουμε κάτι. Και δεν μπορούμε να κάνουμε το ίδιο που έκαναμε πριν. Όχι καφενεία που έχουμε να μιλούμε στο καφενεία να κάνουμε κάτι. Πρέπει να έχουμε γραφείο with full-time staff, professional staff in an office.
Με προσωπικό που θα απασχολείται σε αυτό το γραφείο σε πλήρες ωράριο.
Έτσι το κάνανε εκείνοι που δουλεύουν στο Washington.
Μάλιστα.
Και έπειτα από τα 4 χρόνια που ήμουνα στο Treasury, ήξερα έτσι το κάνανε. Και έτσι αρχίσαμε το Institute. Και εμείς, το Institute είπε, you are violating the law and you must stop the arms. No one would listen.
Ναι, τα λέμε και στα ελληνικά. Παραβιάσατε τον νόμο, τον Αμερικανικό προφανώς. Σταματήστε τον εξοπλισμό.
Και είπανε, όχι, δεν θα το κάνουμε έτσι.
Εσείς ήσασταν τότε στην κυβέρνηση?
Όχι, δεν ήταν στην κυβέρνηση.
Ήμουν έξω τώρα. Και πήγα σε φίλους μας στο Congress και τους είπα, the law is being violated. They said, send me a memorandum.
Πού? Ο νόμος παραβιάστηκε, στείλτε ένα μνημόνιο σε ποιον? Σε ποιον να το στείλουν το μνημόνιο?
Εγώ το έκανα.
Εσείς στείλατε?
Εγώ το έκανα and I sent it to Bradimus, ο κύριος Bradimus.
Κύριε Κοζίνη, μεταφράζετε αν μπορείτε εσείς ταυτόχρονα.
Ο Μπραδίμα να πούμε στα άλλη.
And ο κύριος Derwinski and Sarbanes.
Και με το Σαρμπάνι
και με το memo έγραψα a draft letter to Kissinger from them.
Και στάλει βέβαια και αντίγραφο στον Kissinger, στον Υπουργό Εξωτερικών.
Και ο John Bradimus με είπε, καλά, we agree with you. Και γράψανε το γράμμα στο Kissinger και έτσι αρχίσαμε the rule of law embargo fight in the Congress.
Παίξαν σημαντικό ρόλο στο να επιβληθεί το εμπάργκο στην Τουρκία εκείνη την περίοδο. Είναι κάτι πολύ σημαντικό να το αναφέρουμε αυτό το πράγμα. Από το τίποτα τότε, ο κύριος Ρωσίδης, που ήταν διακεκριμένος δικηγόρος και πολιτικός στις ΗΠΑ, ξαφνικά με η καταστροφή στην Κύπρο κινητοποιήθηκε και άρχισε αυτή την προσπάθεια της πίεσης.
Ο οποίος ο κύριος Ρωσίδης είναι κυπριακής καταγωγής.
Ναι, καταγωγής κυπριακής, αλλά
είναι από τη Μάνη.
Από τη Μάνη είναι.
Ο πατέρας μου ήταν από την Κύπρο, αλλά πέθανε όποτε γεννήθηκα. Η μητέρα μου είναι από την Μάνη, ένα μικρό χωριό Σαλαγούδι, κοντά στην Ήθιον και Σπάρτη.
Μάλιστα.
Παρακολουθήσαμε στο λιγόλεπτο αυτό βίντεο ένα αφιέρωμα στον αείμνηστο, στον ιδρυτή του American-Hellenic Institute, τον αείμνηστο Τζιν Ρωσίδη, όπως ακούσατε, με κυπριακή καταγωγή από τον πατέρα του και μανιάτικη από την πλευρά της μητέρας του. Ακούσαμε επίσης ποιος ήταν η αιτία που διδύθηκε αυτό το ίδρυμα, και δεν ήταν άλλη από την εισβολή της Τουρκίας στην Κύπρο. Και ποιος ήταν και ο στόχος. Ο πρώτος στόχος που επετεύχθη ήταν η επιβολή του υπάρχου, και θα ακούσουμε περισσότερα από τον κύριο Λαρικάκη. Για την ιστορία θέλω να αναφέρω όμως, όπως είναι γραμμένο και στην ιστοσελίδα του American-Hellenic Institute, την οποία θα σας τη δώσουμε στο τέλος της συζήτησής μας. Το Ίδρυμα ιδρύθηκε στις αρχές του Αυγούστου του 1974. Όπως θα θυμόσαστε οι μεγαλύτεροι, εκείνη η περίοδος ήταν η περίοδος της κατάπαυσης του πυρός, που κάθε άλλο παρά κατάπαυση πυρός δεν ήταν, γιατί οι παραβιάσεις ήταν καθημερινές και η προώθηση των δυνάμεων κατοχής ήταν ένα φαινόμενο καθημερινό επίσης. Και αυτό βοήθησε με τον τρόπο του τη συνέχεια της επιχείρησης του Αττήλα II, και φτάσαμε σε αυτά που έχουμε σήμερα με την κατοχή του 36 περίπου της 100 του εδάφους. Αυτά όμως και άλλα περισσότερα θα μας πει ο κύριος Λαρικάκης στη συνέχεια στην ελληνική γλώσσα, και στο δεύτερο μέρος της συζήτησής μας, όταν θα μιλάμε για την αλλαγή της αμερικανικής διοίκησης, δηλαδή για την ανάληψη της ηγεσίας από τον Τζο Μπάιντεν αύριο, θα γυρίσουμε στην αγγλική γλώσσα για να διευκολύνουμε τον καλεσμένο μας να εκφραστεί καλύτερα στη γλώσσα που χρησιμοποιεί καθημερινά. Ο Νίκος Λαρικάκης, λοιπόν, ο φίλος μου ο Νίκος, 40 χρόνια υπηρέτης, να χρησιμοποιήσω αυτή τη λέξη, το American-Hellenic Institute, από όλες τις θέσεις, αλλά το έργο του τα μαρτυρεί όλα αυτά και προεδρεύει του Ιδρύματος τα 10 και κάτι παραπάνω τελευταία χρόνια. Είναι μεγάλη τιμή να είναι μαζί μου σήμερα με αυτή την ιδιότητα και του δίνω το λόγο να μας αναπτύξει το American-Hellenic Institute και στη συνέχεια τις ελληνοαμερικανικές σχέσεις. Νίκο, ο λόγος σε σένα. Το μικρόφωνο.
Ευχαριστώ θερμά, αρχηγέ μου στρατηγέ, που με καλωσορίσατε σε αυτό το πρόγραμμα σήμερα να παρευρεθώ μαζί σας. Επιτρέψτε με να αρχίσω λίγο πρώτα στα αγγλικά για αυτά που θέλω να πω, για τα αυτά που δείξατε για τον κύριο Ρωσίδη. Mr. Rosidis, as was stated, was the founder of this organization, the American-Hellenic Institute. And I worked with the man since 1987. He was my mentor. He was my friend. He was somebody that I looked up to. No one can replace Gene Rosidis in the work that he did in founding this organization and his dedication to the principles and the rule of law. He did it for no other reason but for the right reasons. Not for self-gratification or any glory, but he believed so deeply in the concept of the rule of law and in the concept of how America is a great country. It needs to abide by the rule of law, and when it doesn't, it needs to be called out on. And when you tie that into the fact that the violation of the rule of law in 1974 by the invasion of Cyprus, of Turkey and Cyprus, which violated the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 as amended, that was not, it was more than Mr. Rosidis could stand for, and he felt that he needed to act regarding his ancestral homeland. So it's within that context that he founded the organization. He was a exceptional personality, one that will be missed. And as I said, we don't replace him. We try to emulate him to the best of our abilities, and we try to carry on his legacy that he's left behind and to carry on his mission, because unfortunately, the mission of 74 continues to be with us today because Cyprus is still occupied, is still divided, and over 43,000 Turkish troops are still there. So the work continues. And since then, of course, more things have come to the forefront. And before I go and change over to Greek, your opening interview also reminded me of when I had hair and mustache many years ago. And not to make this a mutual beneficial adoration society, I want to thank you, General, friend, Chief. You have so many, remarkable titles, all worthwhile titles. You said so many great things about me, which I more than I, deserve, and I thank you. But let me also congratulate you, my dear friend, for all the tremendous service in your military career that you provided to the people of Greece, to the people of Cyprus. You did it with professionalism, with military expertise, and with great humility, which defines, in my opinion, what a great leader should be, not just in the military capacity, but in all walks of life. And the people of Greece and Cyprus have a great debt to you and for what you provided to them in all your years of service. And I'm very proud to call you my friend, first and foremost. And then again, it is a pleasure to be with you here today. Και τώρα, άμα θέλεις να αρχίσουμε λίγο στα ελληνικά, θέλεις να ολοκληρώσω πιο πολύ το έργο του Ινστιτούτου από την αρχή, πού θέλεις να πάω την κατεύθυνση αυτή της συζήτησης τώρα?
Εγώ θέλω να δώσουμε σε αυτούς που μας παρακολουθούν τώρα και μέσω του αρχείου, γιατί αυτή η συζήτηση θα μείνει στο αρχείο, να ενημερώσουμε το ελληνικό κοινό στην ελληνική γλώσσα, αν και μεγάλο μέρος των Ελλήνων, όπως γνωρίζεις πολύ καλά, μιλούν την αγγλική γλώσσα. Ποιος ήταν ο ρόλος αυτός? Όπως ακούσαμε από τον Ευγένιο Ρωσίδη, τον αείμνηστο Ευγένιο Ρωσίδη, ο σκοπός ήταν να λύσουμε το Κυπριακό όσο μπορούμε γρήγορα. Βλέπουμε όμως ότι 47 χρόνια μετά, όχι μόνο δεν λύθηκε το Κυπριακό, αλλά φαίνεται να δυσκολεύει και περισσότερο. Πέρα από αυτό όμως, ο ρόλος και το έργο του American-Hellenic Institute, όπως διαβάζουμε, όποιος επισκεφθεί τις ιστοσελίδα σας ή αναζητήσει πληροφορίες, θα δει ότι έχει φύγει πέρα από αυτό και στην ουσία, έτσι όπως εγώ το είδα δηλαδή και όπως εγώ το έζησα, είστε, θεωρώ, ένας από τους καλύτερους συμβούλους που θα μπορούσαν να έχουν οι κυβερνήσεις της Ελλάδας και της Κυπριακής Δημοκρατίας σε ό,τι αφορά τις επαφές τους με το αμερικανικό σύστημα. Πώς λειτουργείτε, πώς είναι αυτός ο τρόπος που κάνετε αυτό το έργο που κάνετε?
Ωραία. Πρώτα, πολλοί θέλουν να μας χαρακτηρίσουν ότι είμαστε το λεγόμενο εισαγωγικά ελληνικό λόμπι. Δεν είμαστε ελληνικό λόμπι. Αν πρέπει να χαρακτηριστούμε με κάποιο λέξη λόμπι, θα είμαστε at minimum a Greek-American lobby. Γιατί ο κύριος Ρωσίδης ίδρυσε την οργάνωση του American-Hellenic Institute και στη συνέχεια το ίδρυμα του Ινστιτούτου, the American-Hellenic Institute Foundation, ένα χρόνο μετά, που θα πούμε και σε αυτό και τα προγράμματα που κάνει αυτό. Αλλά το κομμάτι που είναι να κοινοποιεί την πολιτική θέση, αυτά που κάνουμε, είναι το American-Hellenic Institute. Γιατί είναι προγραμμένο μέσα στο σύνταγμα τους νόμους Αμερικής για να κάνεις λάμπι. Αλλά το λάμπι που κάνουμε, το κάνουμε στην ουσία σαν Αμερικανοί πολίτες για το συμφέρον της Αμερικής. Εμείς είμαστε Αμερικανοί, καταγωγή ελληνική, όπως εγώ και οι περισσότεροι εργάτες μας, όχι αποκλειστικά όλοι που έχουν δουλέψει στο Ινστιτούτο. Η γραμμή που κρατάμε και προωθούμε είναι να μιλάμε με τα στέλη της κυβέρνησης εδώ, State Department, Κογκρέσιο, Λευκό Οίκο και όλοι άλλοι που έχουν να κάνει με την ευρύτερη περιοχή που βρίσκεται η Ελλάδα, η Κύπρο και η Τουρκία, και να τονίζουμε τι είναι ο ρόλος και η πολιτική που πρέπει να ακολουθήσει η Αμερική στην ευρύτερη αυτή περιοχή για τα δικά της τη συμφέροντα, για τα αμερικάνικα τα συμφέροντα. Άσχετο ότι μπορεί και 99,9% να είναι και βέβαια και τα συμφέροντα της Ελλάδος και της Κύπρου, αλλά ο στόχος είναι και η γραμμή είναι όταν εγώ πάμε και μιλάμε με αμερικανικό στέλεχο κυβέρνησης, μιλάμε σαν Αμερικανοί για το καλό και συμφέρον της Αμερικής. Και αυτό είναι πολύ σημαντικό και πρέπει να το προγραμμίσω για να καταλάβουν ότι δεν μπορεί να μας βάλει κανένας σε πακέτο που να είμαστε ελληνικό λάμπι. Το λένε colloquially, αλλά αυτό ήθελα να το ξεκαθαρίσω από την αρχή. Και αυτός ήταν και ο στόχος του Ρωσίδη που είπε ότι με την ευκαιρία του 1974 και την εισβολή, ότι από εδώ και πέρα δεν μπορούμε να το κάνουμε και να κάνουμε react κάθε φορά που κάτι γίνεται. Πρέπει να είμαστε συστηματικό, πρέπει να έχουμε ένα γραφείο με επαγγελματίες που αυτό είναι που κάνουμε κάθε μέρα. Όχι κάποια στιγμή γίνεται μια κρίση και θα μαζευτούμε σε κάποιο δωμάτιο, σε κάποιο καφενείο ή σε κάποιο σπίτι να συζητήσουμε πώς θα αντιδράσουμε. Ο σκοπός είναι να μην χρειάζεται να αντιδράμε, αλλά να σταματάμε πράγματα που του να χρειάζεται να αντιδράμε. Και συνεχώς να είμαστε σε επαφή καθημερινώς με όλα αυτά τα κέντρα που κάνουν τις αποφάσεις για να τους ενημερώνουμε γιατί γίνεται και ποιος κάνει αυτά που κάνει στην περιοχή. Ποιο κράτος βοηθάει τα συμφέροντα της Αμερικής. Ποιο κράτος δεν βοηθάει τα θέματα της Αμερικής. Οπότε συνεχώς ενημερώνουμε με τις έρευνες που κάνουμε και τις γνώσεις που ξέρουμε πάντοτε για το καλό της Αμερικής. Και αυτό το κάνουμε με πολλούς λόγους, όπως ξέρεις, με επαφές σε γραφεία, με τηλεφωνικούς συνδέσεις, με άρθρα που γράφουμε εμείς, με έρευνα που κάνουμε, με συνεδριάσεις που παρουσιάζουμε και ούτε καθεξής που είναι τα συνηθισμένα για να κάνεις μια προβολή για μια συγκεκριμένη πολιτική.
Θα μπορούσα δηλαδή να πω ότι είναι η προώθηση των αμερικανικών συμφερόντων μέσα από την ελληνική και την κυπριακή πολιτεία και ότι γιατί το συμφέρον της Αμερικής υποστηρίζεται από αυτό το δρόμο και έμεσα, indirect, we can say that you promote also the Greek and Greek-Cypriot interests.
Well, without a doubt, one goes with the other. Well, I don't separate Greece and Cyprus, from this equation. The only difference is, and it's a major difference, is that Cyprus today continues to be occupied, continues to have 43,000 approximately illegal troops, has hundreds of thousands of illegal settlers in violation of the Geneva Convention, again, another violation of international law, and it is an ongoing issue. And the way it was in '74, it's still unfortunately an issue today, and we have to deal with it at the highest priority levels of our engagement in the public policy of what we promote here at the American-Hellenic Institute. So yes, Cyprus is very important, and obviously all the other issues that unfortunately have come to the forefront during my tenure here in the last 34 years that I've been associated with the American-Hellenic Institute.
So that means that you have, let's say, continuous or constant meetings with the Greek government and the Republic of Cyprus government in order to coordinate all these issues and to better promote and further expand, let's say, this relationship?
Well, I would be careful regarding the word coordinate, because again, we're an independent organization, and we don't take our marching orders to take a military, concept. And the other important point that I need to make is we are not political. We are bipartisan in the way that we conduct our affairs. Our board of directors are Republicans, are Democrats, but our mission is the rule of law. It's American. It has nothing to do with left or right. Within that same concept, we will work with every government, democratically elected government in Greece and Cyprus, as we have done so since inception in 1974. And when we do come in contact, is we've escalated much more frequently our visits to Greece and Cyprus over the course of the last 15 years or so, because ultimately it is very important to be able to go to the region and to see for yourself what is transpiring, and to meet with the individuals via the governments of Greece and Cyprus, and to hear from them what their concerns are on the ground. And that way we become more educated as to the issues. Doesn't mean we're always going to have to necessarily agree with what they say, but nonetheless, it is important to be able to have a line of communication that is open, to have an understanding of what the country's goals are, and more specifically, to also know what are they doing regarding promoting U.S. interests. Because you may not necessarily read this, well, not necessarily, you're not going to read this necessarily in the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or some other learned journals, although a little bit more is happening regarding that in recent years because of how Turkey is viewed. So it's important to be able to have these visitations in the country, and to come back and to be able to be armed when we go visit with policymakers in Washington, to be able to tell them from firsthand visitations that we've had with meetings of key stakeholders in the policy sector in terms of what are the realities on the ground. For example, I never knew, much about what Suda Bay was. I heard about it, okay, but I didn't know the overall significance and importance it was. So I put it on my agenda, and I made it a goal, and to go visit Suda Bay. Well, I've been to Suda Bay now every year for at least once, and sometimes twice for the last 12 years, at least once every year. And what you see there is extraordinary, just absolutely beyond extraordinary in terms of the multifaceted military facilities that exist there, and how important they are for the geostrategic projection of U.S. interest in the region by virtue of NSA Suda Bay, the U.S. military facility that exists there, and of course the accompanying facilities that all bring together this facility and help to assist the U.S. military in its projection, and NATO, through these facilities. So visits are very important, and my friend, every time you were a commander at one of these military facilities, you were gracious to invite me, and I always accepted, not just because I wanted to see your smiling face in your company, which I enjoyed, but I also knew that I was going to learn something different regarding that particular asset that you were commanding.
Yeah. Okay, let me interrupt our discussion for a moment and to say that to say to our viewers that Nikos Larigakis have even visited me in Evros, and we were together in the blue and red line in the borders with Greece and Turkey anyway. But yeah, we heard from the introductory video that one of the first, let's say, achievements was the embargo against Turkey in 1974. I remember very well what you said before about the promotion of this, the value of the Suda Bay anyway, because it was there for years. It was used by the United States Armed Forces, but anyone was talking about it. And of course, to the extent that falls in my, let's say, capacity, I would like to once again thank you for that. But can you give us, let's say, one or two things, let's say, big issues that was, let's say, in your capacity or in your portfolio during all these, let's say, years? The microphone.
Why does it go off? Is it on now?
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Look, you cannot underestimate the importance of the embargo of 1974 that began and voted in 75. That is still one of the most important congressional wins that we had on Capitol Hill, because we were united as a country regarding one action, and we were able to move it forward. And it proved what we can accomplish when we're united on a policy and everyone working together towards that policy. And you got to remember, this was against the backdrop of very unfavorable conditions at the State Department by then Henry Kissinger, and also by Gerald Ford, you know, in the White House, and certainly from members of Congress as well. But we were successful. So that was important to put it in perspective. A lot of people don't know also that as part of that legislation, Mr. Rosidis, you know, went to the committee and said, "Hey, what about some humanitarian aid here? There are people living in tents in Cyprus. There, you know, 180,000 approximately refugees have been displaced." So we initiated a request of about $45 to $50 million was my recollection, and ultimately 25 million was agreed to. Well, because of that initiative, Cyprus received over the first 10 or 15 years over $400 million in humanitarian assistance, which was very critical to its recovery on the ground, if you will. So these are an important component of that legislation that most people are not aware of. In 1994, when the Ecumenical Patriarchate issue in Istanbul was under duress, and not too many people were talking about it, you know, we wrote then to President Bill Clinton a letter outlining the problem regarding the Ecumenical Patriarchate and his lack of freedoms, lack of religious freedoms, and also the provocative actions by the Turkish government regarding his person and the properties. We ultimately were able to get a resolution in the U.S. House of Representatives, H. Connor Resolution 50, which I helped to draft back then, and it was introduced by Congressman Larigakis. And by using the various elements that you can in trying to promote congressional legislation on Capitol Hill, we were able to get the substantive components of that legislation and make it into an amendment to a State Department Omnibus Appropriations Authorization Bill, which became part of U.S. law, and it still stands as U.S. law today. It has a statute of public law. And basically what it said is that the United States has an obligation in its dealings with the government of Turkey, and that whenever it meets with any official, to continuously bring up the plight of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, call it for protection, call it for recognition of the personality of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, and to call for the reopening of the Halki School of Theology, which was illegally closed since 1971. That was an important piece of legislation that we put forth. There were other times when we also, back then people remember the 7 to 10 military aid ratios between Greece and Turkey. That is, for every $7 Greece got, Turkey got 10. Well, Turkey was also receiving, you know, foreign, you know, military assistance as well in a form of grant money. And so in essence, it was never 7 to 10. It was way more than that. And the money that we were receiving, because money is fungible, we were arguing that this money is being used to basically sustain the illegal military occupation of Cyprus. You can make that argument because money is fungible. long story, we introduced amendments, and we had battles on the House floor until 3:30 in the morning, where we were successful to cap the military financial aid to Turkey from what the administration back then wanted to almost over $50 to $70 million to approximately 25. And then the following year, it was eliminated completely because there was no stomach to go through the process of fighting this aid again. More recently, and this is important, IMET, and you know what I'm talking about, International Military Educational Training, a very important component of the U.S. That provides assistance to militaries for countries' officers to come here and to participate in various military institutions and to be able to and to have greater friendlier relations with officer corps of foreign countries and friendly countries to the United States. Well, this was brought to my attention by an American government official, frankly. I never thought about it too much. And, you know, this person said, he says, you know, Nick, can you help raise Greece's IMET? And I said, okay, why? He says, it's so low, I can put it on a credit card. Okay. You know, it was just about $275,000. And then we came back and we reached out to some friends on Capitol Hill, Senator Van Hollen in particular, and a few others. And to make a long story short, the first year we were able to get up to $475,000, in addition, you know, from the 200. And then for the last 3 or 4 fiscal years, we were able to get it to $1 million. It's still, I think it needs to be a little higher, but it's, you know, but at least it's going in the right direction. And Cyprus this year was also part of the IMET program with $500,000, the first time that's ever happened. So these are some very important points. Another important point, and again, because it's more current, if you will, although we don't deal necessarily in the domestic issues as they relate to Greece and Cyprus, and we were not heavily involved during the economic crisis before COVID, we were still looking for ways within the U.S. Infrastructure, government programs that could be utilized to help boost the Greek economy. And one of the agencies back then was called the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, was such an agency that could be utilized for potential investment in Greece without getting into all the nuances here. Well, in reaching out to the agency, they said, well, you know, Greece does not qualify. You know, they have a per capita income of $18,000 a year. They're part of the European Union, da-da-da-da-da. Well, then we went back. We did more research, and we said, well, wait a minute. Northern Ireland is, you know, is in this program. Portugal is in this program. Malta is in this program. Last time I looked, they're part of the European Union, so it becomes down to a political decision. So working with our friends on Capitol Hill, the Congressional Hellenic Caucus, and a lot of support was led by Congressman Maloney, and ultimately a decision came down that Greece was going to be put into the OPIC program provisionally. Now, we gave it, you know, to the government, if you will, back then, that we were able to accomplish this. After that, there was not much more we could do about it, but we provided at least a vehicle, you know, for that potential. There's many things, but, you know, let me stop there.
Yeah, I see here in the chat room that we have kind of, well, let's say, comments, and I would like to refer to one of those. Someone makes, let's say, the note, why not promote the Greek interests through the American policy? I have to, let's say, to comment on this, saying that when the American interests are promoted through Greece and through the Republic of Cyprus, then the value of both Greece and Cyprus are raised up. So it's a win-win process anyway. And as Mr. Larigakis said, the American-Hellenic Institute and who are working for that are American citizens. Now, let's say, let's go to, you refer earlier into American-Hellenic Institute Foundation and its programs. Can you give us a short idea what it's about? Oh, the microphone again.
Why does it keep going off? Hello? Can you hear me?
It's okay now.
Well, first of all, it's important to know that this organization has stability and projection as best as we possibly can, because we have this building. you've been to our building. Our building, Suda provides projection of
with a very unique type, the Hellenic house.
That's right. And this building is on 16th Street, 4 blocks up from the White House. They're long blocks, but if I go look out the window here, I can see the White House down the street. So this building, which was purchased, I believe, and I'm trying to remember now, it was like 91, if I recall, provides us for a projection and stability of the work of the American-Hellenic Institute. So that's very important. And so out of the building, which is a 4-story building, you know, houses our staff, and also, of course, provides us to do a lot of things to promote our agenda. The foundation here, we've gone through great strides to be able to create a very exclusive library, a volume of over 3,000 books, periodicals, and special collections regarding the Eastern Mediterranean. You know, arguably, it might be the best collection of such documents anywhere in the United States. And they're here for people to come and to conduct research. One of our members also gave us $200,000, and of which we named the library in his honor, E. John Rompakis, a longtime member from Portland, Oregon. And people can come here and do research. There are things here you're not going to find necessarily anywhere else in any library in the United States. Our foundation also, because you always got to keep relevant to the times, and because you have a diverse group of individuals in our community, and a community is very important to understand. The demographics are changing. For the people in Greece, they need to understand that the Greek-American community of today is not even the Greek-American community of when you were here, General, you know, back in your capacity as defense attaché. It keeps changing dramatically, exponentially. Right now, statistics have us about 80 to 90% of interfaith marriages. That is, you know, Greeks marrying outside, you know, of a Greek. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying that's a fact. And because it is a fact, you have to deal with it accordingly if you care about promoting Hellenism and some of the interests that, you know, that we at the American-Hellenic Institute are trying to promote. So in that context, we started a program 18 years ago of what we called the Future of Hellenism in America. And it was an idea of taking an annual conference to a different American city and for a full day presenting specialists, presenters on some topic that relates to Hellenism, education, politics, religion, and so forth. We have now accumulated 18 years worth of papers. You know, we've edited the papers, and now I'm happy to say in 2021, we are going to produce a volume of these papers. The volume is about 500 pages long, and we hope to be able to have it published within the first 6 months of this year. Additionally, when it comes to the core policy agenda of the American-Hellenic Institute, along the same lines of what I just mentioned a few minutes ago, well, the next generation of Greek-American, hell, the current generation of Greek-American really is detached from the issues regarding the Eastern Mediterranean and an understanding of the provocative actions of Turkey, the role that Greece plays, the role of Cyprus plays, and who is the destabilizing factor there, and how important it is to have an understanding of these issues. And if we don't have an understanding of these issues, how can we expect the public policy community to have it? And let me just a little sidebar here. Now, the guys at the State Department who work on the Southern European desk, they know what's going on. You can even argue to a certain degree, certainly the people at the Defense Department that deal in your part of the world knows what's going on. But the people we most have access to and who are intricately important in this process is the U.S. Congress. 535 ladies and gentlemen who make up the Congress. And I'm here to submit to you that very few of them understand foreign policy around the world in general, okay, and of course more finitely, okay, and specifically regarding the Eastern Mediterranean, which is not necessarily on the front burner all the time as we talk about China and Russia and the Middle East and so forth, but nonetheless is a very important geostrategic area that they should be, but they're not. And what brought this home to me in Suda, for example, was when, I guess about, I don't know how many, 7 years ago or so, I happened to be in Florida for a Greek Independence Day parade celebration, and the night before we had a dinner. And I'm sitting next to a U.S. senator. They put me on the dais, and they signed me next to a U.S. senator by the name of Bill Nelson, a Democrat from Florida, who since has lost his seat, but at that time was a sitting U.S. senator, and a former astronaut. Okay. And they were like, talking about what I do and so forth and so on. And I casually brought up Suda Bay. And I was shocked that he had no idea what Suda Bay was, what was there. And you can argue, well, why would he or why should he? Well, in my opinion, I thought it was egregious as related to this person because he was on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Frankly, it was his business to know where American military assets are around the world, since they authorize and appropriate monies from Capitol Hill, okay, for military and military operations around the world. So the idea that he, a former astronaut, a U.S. senator, one of 100, and a member of the Armed Services Committee, did not know where Suda Bay is or what it is and the importance of it, a light bulb went off in my head. And that's why I decided we need to go on a full blitz educational campaign on Suda Bay. And we engaged in a cooperation with a think tank in Washington under our foundation, Lexington Institute, a military, more of a military defense think tank, to put out a white paper on Suda Bay. And we cooperated with them, and they wrote the paper, but we wanted them to believe in what Suda Bay was. We didn't want them to do it because we were going to give them a small amount of money to do it. We wanted them to believe in it, and they did. And the paper, reflected that. And then we presented that paper via the author, and we coordinated it, the rollout of the paper, which we had on Capitol Hill, and we had over 170 policymakers from around Washington on Capitol Hill, and we coordinated it with a visit by then Defense Minister Kamenos, where he gave an opening Isagoyi, forward, and then followed by the presentation. That's under our foundation.
Yeah.
The most important part of the foundation, and I know you want to hear, you want your audience to know about this, and you were very instrumental in this, was our student program. As I said, 90% interfaith marriages becomes very difficult for the children of these kind of households to have an affinity and understanding of these issues. So I created a program 12 years ago approximately, we skipped last year, to take 10 students who go to U.S. universities, and not all from one university. Everyone has to apply. And every year since then, we've been taking 10 students, and you have to go through a series of criteria, apply, letters of recommendation, grades, essays, and we pick. Because we pay for everything. I get sponsors, of course, but we pay for everything except for the transportation back and forth because we want them to have a small investment in the program. But it's a 17-day odyssey where we bring them to Washington, we introduce them to the works of the Institute, we take them on Capitol Hill, we take them to the State Department, we take them to the Greek Embassy, the Cyprus Embassy, and other experts, and provide them a briefing as to what goes on around this town and how we go about doing the business and what the positions are. And then from there, we fly to Cyprus. We spend 5 days there. You have been very gracious in hosting us at multiple times. We show them the importance of the Cypriot National Guard and what role they're playing there. We introduce them to the issue of the Cyprus issue. I take them to the occupied area so they see churches that are desecrated. Famagusta, which I don't know what it looks like now, but up until recently, it was a barbed wire fenced-off area of Varosha, and they see for themselves, because you can talk about these things and read about them all you want, but until you see them physically, it just can't register as such. And then we go to Greece for another 7 days, and we do it all over there. Again, and it's heavy on the defense side. I take them to Suda Bay. We have meetings on the Ministry of Defense, all at the top levels, as you well know. The president of Greece always has been gracious to invite us and to accept us and to speak to the students. And it's just a 17-day packed journey regarding an understanding of these issues. And then they come back, and a lot of them have gone on to follow a foreign policy career, a public policy career. The Lexington Institute report on Suda Bay was a direct result of one of our students, okay, who went there and put us together. Currently, the last 4 or 5 years, all my employees and staff at the Institute have come from this program, as they are currently right now. Exceptional talent. Going on Capitol Hill and in so many other areas. This administration that's leaving tomorrow, for the last 4 years, one of our students was in the public liaison's office. And she was very helpful and instrumental in helping us make sure letters and other communications that we wanted to get to top officials in the White House got to them, and was helpful in arranging for meetings with some of these same officials. So you can see it continues to grow, and we hope to have the program again this year.
Yeah, again, I understand that it's not so easy to cover all the American-Hellenic Institute projects and the history within a discussion like this, but I have a question that I have asked you many times, but I would like our viewers to know about. How is the American-Hellenic Institute supported? Where your resources in order to do so many things are coming from? Again, the microphone.
I don't do anything. I don't know why it goes off.
I don't know.
Thanks for the question, first and foremost. Yes. Look, this is a membership-based organization. Members are important in an organization like the Institute and the kind of lobbying work and advocacy work that we do for a number of reasons. One, it's important, obviously, for funding to the organization. So we have a membership structure of people pay annual dues to the organization, and that helps support our operations and all the work that we do. Critically important to that is to develop grassroots lobbyists or grassroots, support, because in the United States, all politics is local. And therefore, we need members to be all over the country to receive the information and to be actively engaged with members of Congress predominantly at their districts. I don't want to get more into that. That's a whole other discussion, but that's an important component. So over the years, though, for numerous reasons, the membership levels have gone down. And part of it is also because we provide a lot more free information, to be honest with you. Once upon a time, when the only way we communicated was via a monthly newsletter, people were subscribing basically to a newsletter to get information. Well, now we give away emails, for free, a lot of websites, but no one can provide analysis. No one can provide analysis. And there's cost in all of this. So membership support, we have to do the usual things as organizations like ours in the United States do. We do gala dinners once a year where we honor prominent Greek Americans, and through these gala dinners we raise money. We have a number of benefactors that give X amount of dollars. The bottom line is we're way underfunded, and a major problem to be able to expand the scope and the work of the Institute requires a lot more funding than we currently have. And certainly anyone who's out there listening, anyone can be a member of the American-Hellenic Institute. Let me put it into perspective. The American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, the leading pro-Israeli lobby in Washington, D.C., which has been around, I guess, 50 years or so. They have an annual budget of almost $100 million. And they have a full-time staff of 455 full-time employees. By comparison, the Institute barely reaches around $650,000 to $700,000 a year on an annual budget, and we only have in-house, including myself, 3 staff members. Now, I have 3 others which work outside the office for certain things that they do, but fundamentally in-house, that is all we were capable of doing. I venture to think what we'd be able to do if we had more resources and to be able to hire more staff and to have a much more other outreach. We do many things now, but we spend a lot of time also, unfortunately, having to constantly raise money to run the operations.
Okay, I take this message and the opportunity to ask everyone who can support to visit the webpage of the American-Hellenic Institute and to donate in order to continue, let's say, the work that they are doing. Now, although we had planned to make it shorter, but we are now more or less 50 minutes talking for the American-Hellenic Institute, and we can go for hours and hours to discuss about the American-Hellenic Institute, but I think it's time to save some of your time and to go to our, let's say, announced discussion for today. As I said before, we are just 22 hours, or now we are 21 hours before we see the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, and his 49th Vice President, Kamala Harris, to take over. The elections took place, as I said before, on November the 3rd last year, and following the U.S. Constitution, we had, let's say, on January 7 in order to have the official announcement and the declaration of Joe Biden as the 46th President of the United States. However, this period, the period from November the 3rd up to now, it's not something that we have experienced before. It's a unique period, and we see so many actions, activities, and that, let's say, if we were going to discuss these things, let's say, 5 months ago, someone would say that we're crazy thinking like this. But we saw all of this, and many people around the world have been questioned. Is this United States? Is this what happened in Washington, D.C. and in and around the Capitol Hill, or in the Capitol, something that describes, let's say, the democracy in the United States? And I don't know to go further, but Nick, I would like first to start with a short, let's say, view and introduction about the elections, then about the period of this, let's say, 3.5 months anyway, and then to go to our subject, the American relations with Greece and the Republic of Cyprus in conjunction with Turkey. Again, the microphone. Okay.
First of all, one of the things that we pride ourselves for here, and what the United States has always been a beacon of hope to the rest of the world, is our continuous, longest-lasting democracy that we've seen of any other country in the world, which has gone now for 240 years. And we take great pride in that, and we should. We saw that democracy and its institutions bend on the 6th of January, unfortunately, for reasons I don't want to get into here, but they happened nonetheless. The good thing is that the institutions held. And although democracy bent, it did not break. I personally, and you've heard me say it again, there have been 2 times that I've cried as an adult for incidences that have happened in the United States. One, when on 9/11/2001, I was driving by the Pentagon as I come every morning to come to downtown Washington, go to work. And the plane, the American Airlines plane 757, that went by my car window about 200 feet away and crashed in front of my eyes into the Pentagon. and obviously the subsequent things we saw in New York. I cried that day very much because it got me, it hurt me deeply. I almost had the same reaction. I cried again of what I saw on January 6th on the TV as I was watching from my home. It's just things you just can't believe, you can't fathom here in this country. People of the 190 and 93 recognized countries around the world, from every one of those countries, there's somebody who lives here, has come from those countries here. Why have they come here? They have come here because they see a way of life, okay, that they want to be part of. The United States does not promise you you're going to come here and you're going to find gold and money in the street. What it does and always has promised is that it's going to provide an environment, okay, under the rule of law, okay, to be able for you, if you're able to continuously work hard and to try to achieve the best as you possibly can, it's going to give you the environment to allow you to try to do that, of peace and stability. And under the law, although it's always challenged, and that's why that lady has a blindfold under her eyes as she's holding the zigarya, okay? It's not perfect, okay? But it's the best that is out there. And we've always had pride in that. That, unfortunately, is something none of us could believe who believe in the rule of law and the democracy of the United States and the peaceful transition of power and for the respect for democratically run elections, and that we adhere to those elections based on what the people spoke. We didn't see that. What we did see, though, is that it was stood. We did see that the capital was restored back to the hands of those, who were supposed to have it. And fortunately, the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, which is called the U.S. Congress, came back later on that evening and fulfilled their constitutional obligation under the Constitution and the laws of the United States to conduct the ratification of that vote of the Electoral College as mandated by the Constitution on that date. Be damned what was going on outside. And that showed that this country can continue and will continue. We have always had rough spots, and we will continue to have rough spots. Today, we have 25,000 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. All the bridges into D.C. are closed. This is not the way the peaceful transition of power should be conducted in the greatest democracy of the world. But it is what it is, and I feel very positive that we will overcome this. And the key now is with this next administration, okay, its paramount importance are two: COVID-19 and the unity of this country to move forward to the best of our abilities and of which what we are not only capable of, but failure isn't an option to conduct ourselves in that regard. And that means everyone coming together, okay, on both sides of the aisle, okay, and trying to make that happen to the best of our abilities. We can have objections to policy, okay, but we do it in the context of proper debate as a society under the law, okay, and then we move on. We make decisions, we vote, and we move on. And we need to get back to that a little bit, which unfortunately I don't think we're there today. So I am hopeful that tomorrow will be a peaceful transition. Like I said, on the shadow of 25,000, guardsmen here. We were not going to have anybody on the mall anyway because of COVID-19. That was not going to happen anyway.
You have some thousands of flags over there.
Yeah, there's approximately, what did I hear? It was about 500,000 or so, 200,000, I believe, which is going to fill the mall. And they represent each one of the 50 states and U.S. territories around the world. And those flags will be there to substitute for what would be usually the thousands and tens of thousands of masses that would come.
We're not going to see that picture tomorrow. And if I, let's say, go to my times in DC, let's say I have a slide with the invitation and the place that I was supposed to sit in order to attend the handover in Obama time in 2009 anyway. So Nick, thank you very much. I join you, being hopeful that tomorrow starts a new period for the States. What happened the last 3.5 months is going to be a memory, of course, a bad memory, not something that describes the United States democracy, but it has happened. And this one cannot change. I hope that things are going to be better, and at least to have the society united. Now, my next question: what the world has to or should expect from the new administration?
Well, as I said, the new administration's top priorities are to make sure as many Americans as quickly as possible get the COVID-19 vaccination. You know, President-elect Biden has made this a top priority, where he has stated that, you know, the goal is to try to get 100 million vaccinations in the first 100 days. So we are now in a country where we're approaching 400,000 deaths, almost 3,000 deaths a day, over 200,000 cases a day. It's unacceptable. It's somewhat out of control, and this is a top priority, and I absolutely support this as Nikos Larigakis, U.S. citizen, and I think everyone should. So that's number one. The next, obviously, you know, is to try to help stimulate the economy and to help those, you know, who have been out of work and who have been effectively, adversely affected because of COVID, and to try to provide for more stimulus for these people who are in dire need of such assistance. And in parallel to that, obviously, is what we alluded to, you know, from the previous segment, and that is try to create unity within the context of the country. Look, President Trump did receive 72 million votes. That's not an insignificant amount of votes, and that has to be taken into consideration, okay, when you're leading the next country. So he's got a base. There was a reason why those people voted, and there was a reason why people voted for him. But in my opinion, it's not a clear, unadulterated mandate completely. Okay, it shows division in the country. We've seen it in what transpired on January 6th, and we continue to see it on social media. And if it wasn't so, we wouldn't need 25,000, guardsmen to come here and to protect the next transition of democracy. So we need healing. We need unity. And ultimately, I'm a true believer, and you put people in work, you put money in people's pockets, you help their economic standard and all the things that a government is supposed to do. The government is there to serve the people. And if it doesn't serve, Plato said, you change it, but you change it in the proper way. And here we do it by a vote every 2 years and every 4 years.
Yeah.
For federal elections. Okay, we have votes every year. So this is what this next administration is going to be tasked to do. And they have a lot on their plate. But all Americans together, we have to work for the collective good to bring back the word united in United States of America. Because in my opinion, we're just not there. And these are opinions of Nikos Larigakis and not of the American-Hellenic Institute. I need to be very clear here.
Yeah, but you refer to what, let's say, the American people are looking for from the next administration. But United States, nevertheless, what happened the last, let's say, few days, still is and will be #1 power in the world. So whatever happens in the States, in Washington D.C., influences or affects the other world. And so, do you see any change in the foreign policy of the new administration related with the international affairs anyway?
Well, immediately, of course, this administration, the new administration, has announced that it will go back to the Paris Accords. It will join, WHO again, and will look for ways, obviously, to engage those friend and foe across the globe to whatever final achievement of whatever goals we have on the foreign policy agenda. But let's bring it a little bit more home to what I think many of our audience are interested in, and that is obviously Greece, Cyprus, Turkey, and the Eastern Mediterranean. The first thing I think everyone in your audience, which I'm sure they're savvy enough to know, but it always amazes me sometimes, please understand that no American president, I don't care who or she is, okay, ever wakes up in the morning and the first thing on their mind is the Eastern Mediterranean and what I can do for Greece or Cyprus or Turkey in a positive or negative way. That's just not the mindset. The Eastern Mediterranean, okay, continues to be, in my opinion, unfortunately, but continues to be, in my opinion, a tertiary, okay, a secondary or even maybe a tertiary issue in the overall foreign policy of the United States as it relates to the president himself. And in this case, it's a he, so we say himself, okay? And many of our issues are never managed or dealt with directly at the presidential level, but are usually sent off to the bureaucracy at the State Department, which deals with them. And when a time of a crisis and the president needs to step up, as we've seen with the EMEA and then Bill Clinton, and even with Obama, when they put in pressure regarding the Germans and others back then to help Greece during the economic crisis. It's only when it comes to an acute crisis, that you usually see this. But you want to prevent this. You want to be able to look at the region and value its importance, okay? And because it's a hugely geostrategic important issue, one where the United States in general has abdicated, the area in many ways by going to looking towards China, looking towards Russia, and sort of have left the region a little bit of a vacuum for other players to come in and to try to fill in. This administration, led by the president himself, knows the issues of the Eastern Mediterranean better, in my opinion, than any president has ever known these issues coming in to the White House. And we at the Institute take great pride in this because back in 1974, immediately after the aftermath of the Cyprus invasion, and where we were looking to garner support for the embargo and the issue in general, our people in Delaware, led by our chairman of AHI for a number of years at the time, after what I'm going to say, he became chairman, Dean Lomas, and the team from Delaware approached Joe Biden and educated Joe Biden, okay, in the aftermath of '74. And ever since then, and Joe Biden was a senator for many years, and he was senator of the Foreign Relations Committee for many years, and always took the proper stance, in terms of how we view what that stance should be regarding promoting U.S. interests in the region and to call out Turkey for what it was doing. And in my possession here, one of the things that we did when he first became, the president-elect, I went to the basement of my archives and I found boxes and many files on letters just like this one, okay, from Senator Biden, okay, to the Institute, and this one from 1989. Let me just read to you what Senator Biden then said to then the president of AHI, Dean Lomas, when referring to the Cyprus issue, because that was the issue that was still the most paramount at the time. And as we said earlier, it's still a very critical issue today. It drives a lot of the issues as it relates to Greece and Turkey. Cyprus is still very important, notwithstanding the Aegean and what we've seen with aggressive actions in the Aegean and so forth. Cyprus is the linchpin issue. He said, when he asked himself, how can we go about this regarding Cyprus? What does he say? He says, first, we must urge the new administration to make Cyprus a higher priority in American foreign policy. That was when then George Bush, the father, was coming in as president. So he's saying that that president needed to elevate the Cyprus issue to at his level. And then he goes on to say, at the same time, we cannot lose sight of the fact that the rights of the Greek Cypriots have been trampled upon, and we must ensure that their claims to ancestral land and property seized during 1974 invasion are not compromised. And I conclude, finally, we must send a signal to Turkey that until it has removed every last soldier from Cyprus, it will never be recognized as a full member of the international community. I submit to you, nothing has changed on the ground, and hopefully he will adhere to these same principles. We will remind him, as we have in various ways, and in his Biden-Harris announcement, you know, he says again, we will work with our close ally Greece to advance stability in the Eastern Mediterranean. Joe, they refer to him here as Joe, will call out Turkish behavior that is in the violation of international law that contravenes its commitments as a NATO ally, such as Turkey's violations of Greek airspace. And Joe will work diplomatically to bring a resolution to the Cyprus question. Well, we will keep reminding the Biden administration regarding these comments, and we don't have to educate him. He understands the issues. He understands it very well. And he does have people in play regarding the next potential Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, who, as a matter of fact, as we're talking right now, his nomination hearings are taking place, and my colleague is following those right now, so we can brief me. And also others in his administration, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, potential next National Security Advisor, most likely, of course, he will be. And what did Mr. Sullivan say? He said in an article that he wrote in 2018, quote, Turkey is out of control. Time for U.S. to say so. Sullivan stated that Erdogan is volatile leader threatening U.S. interests. So we have a group of policymakers at the National Security Council, at the State Department, and other areas, okay, that I think understand the issues very well, the region, who the malign actors are, who the benign actors are, and who's doing what to preserve U.S. interest. And, of course, we need to remind everyone that U.S.-Greek relations continue to be at an all-time high, are grounded also in the defense cooperation. We've extended the defense cooperation agreements. We're looking to expand that defense cooperation in places near where you live, up in Alexandroupolis, Kavala, Savouvouni, and obviously in the most recent National Defense Authorization Act that funds the U.S. military of around $700 billion. $50 million was authorized for upgrades to Suda Bay. So there seems to be a commitment. It's bipartisan, this commitment, and a lot of it is because of the way they view Turkey right now. And we need to continue to keep Turkey's feet to the fire. You know, all of a sudden, immediately you see think tanks and others coming out and saying, well, yeah, but Turkey is a very important ally. They're very strong. They're the strongest in the region. And we need to accommodate them. And we need to understand it from their point of view. No, they need to understand it from our point of view. Okay, you're part of an alliance called NATO. You've sworn a duty and responsibility to that alliance, which Greece always has. Okay, even sometimes if its own national interests were not, seen in the same vein in terms of a particular action. And the Bosnian campaign I'm reminded of that. But nonetheless, when called upon, to act in a faithful way because of their commitment to the alliance, Greece has always come through. Turkey has not, and Greece continues to do so, and Turkey continues not to do so. Where I get upset, and a lot of what goes on Capitol Hill today, okay, in terms of this, the way they view Turkey, it started with a priest, Pastor Brunson. Okay, you remember Pastor Brunson a couple of years ago? You know, he was in jail on ridiculous charges. And there was a major movement from Capitol Hill led by 3 senators, okay, and a large grassroots community led by the Christian evangelists. And then it went to Trump, and Trump himself made it an issue, and they let Brunson go. But that is what started things in motion. And the most recent action regarding the CATSA that were finally implemented in the late fall of last year. Why? Because of S-400s. No one talks about the other things that Turkey is doing. They're not talking about the illegal occupation of Cyprus. Okay, they're not talking about the illegal ships, you know, who continue to float around and do illegal surveying in Cyprus's EEZ. And certainly they don't use the arguments of what took place this past summer regarding what we all saw in the Aegean, okay, for months on end of the provocative actions regarding Turkey. And now Turkey, just a couple of days ago, what did they do again? Okay, they're looking to try to have a negotiation with Greece, but they go issue a 12-month NAFTAX.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that you're right. I think that the American administration and those who are influencing the decision makers have to understand the region, and this is one of the, let's say, the work that you are doing, and as it let's say falls to my capacity, I thank you very much. But again, I will stay in the area. I will stay in Eastern Mediterranean and also the Middle East. There are many articles and many critics that the United States has withdrawn partly from the area and or reduced the presence in the area, and that left some vacuum or some room for other powers, to include Turkey. And we saw, let's say, so many activities of Turkey taking place in this area, either to expand the, let's say, the authority, or to be the leader of the Islamic community or the Islamic states in the world. We saw Turkey to intervene in Libya. We saw Turkey to cooperate with Azerbaijan against Nagorno-Karabakh in Armenia. We see what happens every day in Syria, and costs thousands, millions of refugees, and together with immigrants from Southeastern Asia and Afghanistan and Iraq and other places, to include Africa, of course, and that is a problem for Greece and the European Union. But we show, and that is the one part. From the other side, we show that the United States have expressed the kind of, and I'm talking from what I experienced in the island of Cyprus last 3 years. I saw something like an interest, and growing up interest of the United States for the Republic of Cyprus and the island itself. So does it mean that the United States are coming back to the area? Does it mean that we expect to see a change or a different approach to the foreign policy related with the Mediterranean Sea in total, or the Middle East?
Well, I do think the next administration, I mean, this previous administration was one that was not interested necessarily to expand its military operations, and was not looking to be involved in areas around the world where it thought its allies should take a much more leading role. And, you know, we saw criticism of NATO and the European Union and so forth regarding some of these other areas. The United States has traditionally taken a much more active role in the past. I am hoping that this administration needs to understand that the United States cannot afford not to be actively involved. Unfortunately, everywhere around the world, that interests are there that it needs to maintain and to pursue. And in my opinion, certainly the Eastern Mediterranean is about as important an area geostrategically as there is, because of commerce routes, trade, energy, and because of the southeastern flank that promotes the peace and stability for Western Europe and U.S. interest, which brings Israel into this equation as well. There's a lot of malign actors. Okay, the arch of instability, that we've seen from the Libyan coast, and you can argue all the way to the Albanian coast that we've seen this, the flow of migration and so forth. So this is a very critical area, and Greece and Cyprus are doing yeoman's work to protect and defend and to promote this interest, but the United States cannot abdicate its responsibility, and I think it has not overall, but I think it just needs to recommit itself more fully, diplomatically, politically, and with military assets as well. We see they've stationed a permanent ship down in Suda Bay now. The base continues to be there. Upgrades are going to be considered there. I don't think you would see this mindset of upgrades to Suda Bay and what we've seen in Alexandroupolis, Stavronikio, and other places in this defense cooperation agreement, if in fact they didn't view the area in a much more to upgrade and to have much more of a footprint into the area, which I'm hoping that will happen. Turkey, and they need to understand Turkey's transactional approach to the region. Turkey will do as much as is, and agree with so much, with the United States, because their ultimate view is to try to get, the blue homeland green light, okay, to promote its hegemony and try to show that they are the superpower in the region by virtue of going into places which they have no business of going into places, okay, and instead of helping to facilitate, the problem in these areas, they exasperate it to the detriment of NATO interest and U.S. interest in particular. As we've seen in Libya, as we've seen in Syria, and obviously what we saw in Nagorno-Karabakh in Azerbaijan, and obviously what they're trying to do in the Aegean and off the coast of Cyprus with this inflammatory, provocative actions. So the United States and this next administration needs to understand that they cannot appease Turkey in any capacity, okay, period. If they do that, we're going to continue to see this continue to go unchallenged to whatever degree Turkey is able to continue to play this role. Although, again, there are others who will argue, is Turkey going to be capable to continue to facilitate this and to be able to sustain it? Is it able to have so many arms everywhere tethered to a country that's economically troubled, that's politically unstable to a certain degree in terms of the various facets, that are within the country, lack of human rights, and so many other problems internally? Will this country be able to sustain itself? Okay, let alone be able to expand its hegemony, okay, that is trying to promote through Muslim Brotherhood and through other areas of the region. Yeah.
So let's. I'm looking again for the notes that we are receiving here from our viewers, and you know very well what is going on with this Greek-Turkish relations, and the already announced, let's say, coming back for the regular meetings, which stopped back in 2016, and to continue the discussions about, let's say, the Turkey insists to have in the agenda, let's say, hundreds of issues, but from the Greek side there is only one issue, and that is the economic exclusive zone. But so, and many of our viewers ask how United States is going to react, to interact, or to interfere, or to, let's say, to participate in this process. What, let's say, me as a Greek citizen can expect from the United States policy related with this, let's say, I don't know, dispute between Turkey and Greece, because Turkey translates the law of sea in a X way, but it is far away from what the law of sea foresees in the relations with the states anyway. So
well, I think, first of all, we need to get away from this archaic concept regarding the region, and specifically as relates to Turkey, of viewing Turkey in a realpolitik kind of a way. Okay, Turkey today can now be seen as a faithful and longtime ally. Okay, once upon a time it was viewed within the context of the Cold War, Soviet Union, and so forth. But even then, I can argue, why was its army of the Aegean looking at the Aegean and not looking towards towards the Soviet Union. And I can go into why did they allow the Kiev and other aircraft and another aircraft carrier to go through the Dardanelles in violation of the Montreux Treaty. Turkey was the second largest recipient of Soviet aid outside of the Warsaw Pact country. I just bring all this up because they talk about what a bulwark Turkey was during the Cold War, okay, which to whatever degree they played some intelligence gathering, role, today is surely not necessary. And the United States has shown, as we've seen from the two Iraqi wars, that we don't need Turkey necessarily, okay, for us to be able to go there and to do what we need to do. And if anything, Turkey was causing problems by not allowing us to open up a northern front, and we're asking $26 billion to allow a U.S. ally, okay, to go through its territory. So they just dismiss with the notion immediately that Turkey today, okay, is a perceived faithful and loyal ally. I wish it was. I'm not saying you dismiss Turkey. It's a country of 70, 80 million people, has a huge landmass, and still is within NATO, and has the second largest army within NATO. But that means, though, it needs to abide by the rules. Okay? You play a soccer game, you have a referee. Okay? His whistle is what dictates the rules of the game. It's not the rule of the jungle. Turkey does not, abide by that. It's like what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. Is how they portray their policy. Yeah. So the United States needs to stop this equal distance approach. Okay. Regarding
now you came to the point. How everyone translates the equal distance.
Yeah. We have an obligation, first and foremost, okay, to provide peace and stability in the region and to also promote U.S. law. When I speak with members on Capitol Hill, I said, Turkey, every time it violates, it flies into Greek territorial sovereignty, which it does on a daily basis, as we know, it violates the Arms Export Control Act, under which those assets have been sold to Turkey. Yeah. Those assets, those sorties are supposed to be only for defensive purposes, not offensive purposes. As far as I know, there's been nothing to suggest that the Greek military has acted in an aggressive and offensive manner regarding Turkey's territorial integrity. So immediately they're under violation of the law. Castelorizo, which is part of the Dodecanese Islands, okay, in the group of islands, is part of also U.S. law too, of which the islands were ceded to Greece in 1947 at the Paris Treaty. Well, the United States is a signatory to that treaty. Okay, and therefore becomes U.S. law and has an obligation to what that treaty says, which delimitates and talks about what the boundaries are, okay, in the Aegean. And Greece's territory in the Aegean is supported under UNCLOS. If it were to exercise its rights under UNCLOS, it has every right to do so. Cyprus has, and UNCLOS is what dictates it. Well, the United States Now, the United States has not ratified the UNCLOS treaty. They've signed it. They've now ratified it, but they do abide it as customary international law. Okay, and therefore we should not be in the business of having two sets of values and two sets of foreign policy. Okay, for friends and foes, it needs to be the same. And in this case, we need to be calling out who our friend here is, who is not helping our interest there, and to try to promote them within the context of bringing them into line, to help if they can. And if Turkey is willing to do so, then so be it. But if they're not, we can't appease them and look the other way while they, act aggressively in other areas and with other friends and allies that, that their security and their territory can be compromised.
Yeah. So then I have to go back to your, let's say, initial remarks and comments that you succeeded to divert, let's say, this 7 to 10 balance, and you succeeded to reduce the money that Turkey was taking in addition to 7 to 10 balance. And I think that this is something that the American administration has to understand, or to see how to translate and to implement the equal distance. It's not something that let's say we see, and they try to keep a distance from away, although they have let's say declared or announced that they support the international law and the UNCLOS as well, although they have not ratified it. So then I have a, I cannot forget my time, and of course I cannot forget the Republic of Cyprus and Cyprus. They honored me with the duties of the Chief of the National Guard. And how do you describe, let's say, the current developments in the United States Republic of Cyprus relations? And what we saw, let's say, the last more or less 3-4 years, and lately we saw the signature or the foundation of this Cyprus Center for the Law for the Cyclops, let's say, in Larnaca. What is the climate in this relationship?
Well, again, we just like in Greece, we do see a strengthening of the U.S.-Cyprus relationship. We saw unprecedented visits, like Secretary Pompeo, visited there. Vice President Biden, in this capacity under the Obama administration, before then, there's a genuine, I believe, goodwill to try to have a better relationship with Cyprus. The problem still remains the problem. How are we, the United States, going to help to try to bring the island together so it's whole, free, and at peace? We support one government on Cyprus, one administration on Cyprus, and a bizonal, bicommunal federation. And how do we get there? Especially now that we have seen much more rhetoric escalated by Mr. Erdogan through his proxy, Mr. Tartar, and talking about openly, for the first time openly, two-state solutions, where they went there and they illegally under U.S. Security Council resolutions and opened up Varosha. These are all very troubling indicators regarding what Turkey's next move may be, and we better be ready what the next shoe may fall, or as it relates to Cyprus. I mean, we've seen for a number of years now, with immunity, really, Turkish research vessels accompanied by military naval vessels accompany these ships in the Cyprus Exclusive Economic Zone. We saw a blockade of the ENI ship for months, and ultimately they were able to push it out of where it was supposed to go. And what was the outcry? Frankly, from the European Union, first and foremost. It's a European Union country, and I've never understood the European Union in all this. Okay, but the United States, they've on a number of occasions, you see their rhetoric. They've come out, they've condemned these actions, but it still continues. Yeah. Are we ready to send the 6th Fleet there? I doubt it. But I'm worried what the next escalation could bring. And the United States needs to, in no uncertain terms, need to be able to tell Turkey to cease and desist. As long as Turkey continues to have these archaic policies and what it perceives to be its role in the Republic of Cyprus, there will never be a solution. They have different interests in what the people of Cyprus have. The people of Cyprus, if left to their own accord, can work this out probably in short order. But as long as Turkey insists on archaic principles and maintaining a 40,000 plus strong military and trying to change the demographics of the island, and no one is calling them out in strong language and with sanctions or with other reparations, if you don't do this, this will happen. The rhetoric is there, but the action is not. And as long as the action is not there, and they don't feel there's going to be, they don't fear there's going to be an action, then it's going to be very difficult to continue to move forward and to resolve this issue. That doesn't mean there are different elements regarding the Cyprus-U.S. relationship that, you know, need to run parallel, and they are doing so. But we also need to get Cyprus off the ITAR list and be able to be eligible completely to purchase any and all weapons, you know, that he needs from the United States, and not necessarily have to go, you know, to other European partners, or unfortunately, as it needed to go for many years, to Russia to be able to defend itself and to purchase weapons from there.
So, Nick, we are more than 1.5 hours in discussion, and I understand that your time is very critical for you, especially today. But I would like to wish and to ask for your support. All of these that you refer, the actions that should be taken to, let's say, to promote them and to convince the new administration to take steps forward in order to see a better future for the Republic of Cyprus and the island and our brothers in because it's not a Cypriot issue, it's a Hellenism issue, and we have to take it into consideration.
The rule of law issue.
Yeah, but let's say, coming closer to the end of this discussion, I would like to ask you to send your message to the Hellenes in Greece, in Cyprus, and in the United States, and the worldwide. And through this electronic media, everybody can see us now, and or even to visit the website and to attend, to watch this discussion anyway.
Well, first and foremost, I want to wish all my fellow Hellenes throughout the world, wherever they are, a very happy, healthy, prosperous new year. And hopefully wherever you are, that you're safe from this despicable pandemic that we're all under, COVID-19, and that we will soon come out of this all together and be able to, you know, continue in our lives in a normal fashion. I would also like to say that wherever Hellenes are around the world, to continue to understand, educate yourselves on the issues that we're talking about here today that affect the ancestral homelands of Greece and Cyprus, and how difficult an area of geography they occupy, and how difficult it is for them to continue to be able to continue, as countries, because they're constantly being challenged. So we have a responsibility throughout the world as Hellenes to continue to be aware, to understand, and to promote and to advocate for these issues within the governments that we live in and the countries that we live in around the world. For the people of Greece and Cyprus, I just want to say that each and every one of you needs to be very proud of who you are and what you've accomplished and what you continue to accomplish, not only for your own countries and your own peoples, and first and foremost, your own national interests, which you do it to the best of your capabilities and more so, and make all of us proud who do have, Hellenism as an ancestral background, who live throughout the world. You provide for us the oxygen, if you will, to be able to do the work, which we believe very closely, because even though we live in 7 continents around the world, we are always tethered to that region, called Greece and Cyprus, and you help us to be able to continue to do our work and to strengthen the ties that we feel very strongly about in the countries that we live in, especially we here as Americans. We feel very strongly about the United States. We feel very strongly in the love we have for our country, but we also have a very strong and deep-rooted love for our ancestral homeland, Greece, and we want to be able to connect the two and to see the two countries move together in the same direction, because we share also not just in interest, but we share in values. And that is a very important point that I need to bring home. So continue to do what you're doing, and the economy will get better, as enjoy the great sun and enjoy the great beaches and whatever Greece offers like no other country in the world.
So I would like to reciprocate the thanks and to openly say that how proud I feel of the Greek Americans and the Greeks around the world for what you are doing. everyone has left the country for different reasons, but you found, let's say, especially in the States, let's say, the American dream, and we see the successes that you've brought up, and how important this element of the Greek diaspora, of the Hellenic diaspora, is. I hope that the governments, both here in Greece and in Cyprus, to take any necessary action and to better exploit the presence of the Greek diaspora or the Hellenic diaspora around the world. With that, I would like to ask Pantelis to show the last slide, and this is of course, he's not with us. Anyway, so everybody who wants to learn more about the American-Hellenic Institute, you can visit the webpage and www.archiworld.org. And let's say, to close by saying what Nick Larigakis says: take pride and have passion in what you do. This is something that he follows every day. And Nick, I wish you and all the Americans having a nice Inauguration Day tomorrow. And I think that today a new era starts for the United States of America. And of course, you know that here we celebrate the 200 years after the 1881 revolution. And we know that probably many people do not know that there were American Philhellenes participating in that revolution. And there is, let's say, a program that was launched by the American Embassy in Athens related with that. And there is a video that is in the air. So, Nick, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to seeing and meeting you here in Greece. And we have too many more issues to discuss. Discussion with you is always a pleasure.
It's my pleasure, Ilias. And let me just quickly ask, since you brought it up, we also are going to host a two-day conference on the bicentennial of 1821 on March 18th and 19th via virtual presentation. We have a number of speakers to talk about exactly the topic, the Philhellenes and the role they played in the War of Independence. And yeah, it's always a pleasure, my friend. I congratulate you on this initiative with this program. Wish you all the best. And thank you for the opportunity to be with you here today. And I just wish you continued good health, and look forward to seeing you real soon, and we can continue our discussion. Να είστε καλά πάντοτε και Θεός μαζί σου.
Να είστε καλά. Να είστε καλά. Καλή μέρα να έχετε. Να είστε καλά, Νίκο. Ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαρίστως.